Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Mishra Bhagavahan Svaraji Acharya Saraswati Swati A.C. Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Sagaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Shwasti Gaur, Bhakti-Vrinda Ki Jai, Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopida, Shama Kunda Radha Kunda, Giri Govardhana Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Jamuna Tulasi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Samavetta Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai, Go Premanandi, all glories to the Assembled devotees, all glories to the Assembled devotees, all glories to the Assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shri Mate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachadane Nirvashesha Shunyavani Paschatya Desha Tadane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today we go over chapter 9 of Bhagavad-gita. How many chapters we have in the Bhagavad-gita? 15? 18. So this is halfway through, number 9. This is, we could say, the most important chapter in one sense of the Bhagavad-gita. Of course, also, we find that there are 6 chapters in the beginning, mainly about karma yoga, and then 6 about bhakti yoga in the middle, from 7 to 12. And the last 6 chapters, Vishnu Chakravarti says, are prominently jnana, analysis of the material world, Atma, etc. So the middle 6 chapters are considered to be the, let's say, the essence of the Bhagavad-gita. Of course, the argument can be given that if it's the essence, why not put it at the beginning, or why not put it at the end? Sometimes, you go off and lead to the climax at the end, but the important thing at the end. Or just put it at the beginning. Why in the middle? So his answer to that is that bhakti is like a jewel. And we don't leave a jewel out in the open. We put it in a box and we put a cover on it. So the first 6 chapters are like the bottom part of the box. The last 6 chapters are like the cover. And the middle 6 chapters are like the jewel inside the case, the jewel case. So that's his explanation why the middle 6 chapters are about bhakti, which is the most important thing. So in those chapters, middle 6 chapters, and in the middle we get this chapter 9, which you say is the philosophical essence of the whole Bhagavad-gita. We'll find the main messages here in the 9th chapter. Of course, it's repeated at the very end of Bhagavad-gita also, but the main message is here. So it's a very important chapter. So this chapter begins with Krishna speaking. I will speak to you who have no envy, the most secret knowledge, bhakti, along with realization of me, knowing which you will be freed from suffering. So he calls this the most secret knowledge. Knowledge, Vedic knowledge in general, is secret, in one sense, a rahasya. It's not open for everyone. You need to have qualification to get that knowledge. Bhagavad-gita, of course, is not so secret because it's available for all types of people. It's not limited to the dvijas or the twice born. So Bhagavad-gita can be accessed by everyone. Nevertheless, people may not appreciate the real essence of the Bhagavad-gita, and only those who are qualified with bhakti will understand the real message of the Bhagavad-gita. So that secret is here in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad-gita. We can say that other knowledge, like knowledge of Atma, which we learn through jnana, is also secret. But this is more secret because it involves knowledge of Bhagavan. So it's much more secret. So previously in chapter 7, Krishna talked about jnana and vijnana, knowledge and specialized knowledge. General knowledge, spiritual knowledge with Atma in it, and then special knowledge with knowledge of Bhagavan in it. Or knowledge of the Lord's powers in general, and then knowledge of the Lord's sweetness. It's also called vijnana. So in any case, the knowledge of bhakti with the knowledge of the form of the Lord and his sweetness and his powers and the method itself is considered to be part of that secret knowledge, or most secret knowledge. At the end of the Bhagavad-gita, again, in chapter 18, Krishna repeats this, I'll teach you secret knowledge, I'll teach you more secret knowledge, than I teach you most secret knowledge. He says that also. And then he also repeats a verse from chapter 9 in that secret knowledge, most secret knowledge. Knowledge of Brahman is there, knowledge of Paramatma is there, and finally knowledge of Bhagavan is the highest of all. So that's the most secret knowledge. So in this chapter, Krishna speaks about his supremacy, all of his powers which make him supreme, and which stimulate the bhakti of the devotee. Once we know the position of the Lord, we develop devotion to him. And as well as that, it describes the process of bhakti in practice. So that's the main theme of this chapter, glorifying the position of the Lord, and then explaining the process of bhakti. So Krishna, of course, in the whole, like 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 are basically bhakti. So in the 7th chapter and 8th chapter, we saw how Krishna was emphasizing the process of pure bhakti over anything else. You can get realization of the Lord through this yoga Mr. Bhakti, which was described in chapter 8, but generally you'll realize Paramatma through that. And if you want to realize Krishna, then you have to do pure bhakti, not mixed with yoga or any other process. So here in the 9th chapter, he doesn't talk about the mixed processes, rather he talks about pure bhakti. So he begins by praising the process of pure bhakti. This pure bhakti is the king of knowledge, the king of secrets, the most purifying of all methods, bringing direct realization of the Lord. So in other words, one realizes Bhagavan through this method of bhakti, through this knowledge. It is nourished by righteous actions, easy to execute, and it is eternal. So that, of course, is confirmed by the Vedanta Sutra itself, which is Prakasa Karmani Abhyasat. The Lord is revealed through constant repetition of devotional activities. So we do bhakti repetitively, and then we get the result. So here Krishna says it's easy process, easy to execute. Much easier than karma yoga, or jnana yoga, or astanga yoga. How is it easy? That's called susukam kartam, easy to execute. The processes are very easy. To do karma yoga perfectly is not easy. You have to learn many things. You have to learn sacrifices, for instance, which are very complex ceremonies. In order to execute those, you cannot do them alone. Then you have to engage all sorts of priests to do the sacrifices. So sacrifice is very difficult. That part of karma yoga very difficult to do. And even if we're doing the simple parts of karma yoga, such as what we call the nitya karmas, daily activities that the Brahman does, even that requires a lot of practice to do them, and qualification as well. The activities of bhakti, most do not require any book knowledge or training at all. Hearing does not require, a whole course in order to hear properly. Chanting the holy name doesn't require any course at all. So all these activities can be done very simply by children or adults or uneducated people or educated people, by everybody. In that sense, very simple to do compared to karma yoga or jnana, which requires extensive study of Vedanta Sutras and Upanishads and Sanskrit grammar, etc. Or yoga, which requires constant practice to control the senses and do meditation. So it's much, much easier than those other processes. So you can just hear about the Lord, offer tulsi leaves to Shalagram Shila, as Advaita Acharya did, and it's very pleasing to the Lord. Offer water and tulsi leaves, and you can please the Lord that way. So the ingredients also are not very complicated, water and tulsi leaves. Whereas in Karma Kanda, if you're to do sacrifices, then you have to really make endeavor to collect all the different items for sacrifice. So this process is not only easy to perform, but it is eternal, avyaya. It continues after one leaves the body and goes to the spiritual world in liberation. So all the activities of bhakti are eternal. They're not temporary activities. If you do the activities of karma yoga, by doing them you go to Svargaloka, then you don't do those karma yoga activities anymore. If you do jnana activities of studying Vedanta, you get liberation. You don't study anymore after you're liberated. But bhakti, you do them when you're doing sadhana, the same activities you do when you're in spiritual world. So they're eternal activities. So this is quite different from the other processes that were described. That is karma yoga, jnana yoga, and Astanga yoga. So as we always emphasize, the qualification for bhakti is not varna, brahmana, kshatriya, vaishya, or sudra, or whatever. It's not ashrama. Any ashram can do it, any varna can do it. Anyone outside the varna and the ashram can also do it. It depends only on faith. And faith may arise within the varnashram system or outside the varnashram system. So it's open to everyone. So he states this, of course, in the negative. Those who do not have faith in this bhakti do not attain me and remain fixed on the path of transmigration and death. So if you have faith, then you can practice this process. Then here in text 4, Krishna begins to describe his powers. I pervade this whole universe by my form, which is invisible to the material eyes, and simultaneously all entities are within me. I am in everything, and everything is within me. But I'm not in them. So the Lord is inside and outside of everything. And he's not affected by anything, even if he is inside everything. So that's why he says, I'm not in them. He's completely untouched by everything. So this is a remarkable power of Supreme Lord, which was illustrated very nicely by Krishna when Mother Yasoda opened Krishna's mouth to see if he had dirt in his mouth, and then she saw inside him whole universe, everything was in Krishna. But then she looked out and she saw Krishna was on her lap, and then she looked around and the whole world was outside Krishna. So Krishna was in the world, but the world was in Krishna. So she looked inside and everything was in Krishna. She looked outside, everything is outside Krishna. So how can Krishna do that? He can be inside and outside of everything, because he has this inconceivable power, Achintya Shakti. Though I'm within everything and maintain and regulate everything, all moving and non-moving entities are simultaneously situated within me. This means their existence is dependent upon me. So Krishna is inside regulating, and everything is dependent on him. And I'm not situated in all these beings. I am not dependent on them. So in all cases, Krishna is independent. He can be inside or outside, doesn't matter. He is independent. Though my expansion as the Paramatma, that's the Antaryami of the universe, through these expansions, I enter within the universe and control and support it. So in that sense, Krishna, because he's non-different from Paramatma, he's in everything. He's in the, as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu is in the universe, as Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, he's in every living entity, in every body. At the same time, the Paramatma forms are not Krishna because he's in Goloka. So in that sense, he's not in everything. But yet he is in everything through his expansion of Paramatma. The living beings are not in me. See my inconceivable power. I maintain them and protect them, but I am not in them. My mind maintains and protects them. So the Lord has inconceivable Shakti, whose quality is that his every desire is fulfilled without effort. So the Lord doesn't have to do anything. He can, by his Shakti, penetrate everything and make sure everything is done. So he's never dependent upon the living entities. In that sense, he's not in them. By my direction, Prakriti gives rise to the universe of moving and non-moving entities. By this cause, O son of Kuti, the universe appears again and again. So under his direction, Prakriti does everything. So in other words, the Lord doesn't have to directly involve. So we see that Mahavishnu glances. He doesn't touch energy, the material energy at all. He just says, let it happen. And he glances and Prakriti starts to transform into universes. And when he says, disappear, everything dissolves again back into Prakriti. And this is all done by the Paramatma feature of the Lord. And then Krishna is completely separate from that. So, therefore, this again is the inconceivable power of the Lord. He can expand into other forms, he can create the world, destroy it, and he remains completely separate in Goloka Vrindavan. So, Krishna does everything in one sense. At the same time, he is neutral. So this is not contrary. It looks like it's contrary, but it's not. So he can, simply by being present, he can rule. He doesn't have to put forth any effort into his activities. So he's present, Prakriti is there, and then Prakriti is dependent on the Lord's will and manifests everything. If the Lord is not present, Prakriti can do nothing. So if the king is not on his throne, then the ministers cannot do anything. They don't have any power. So similarly, Lord's not there, Maya can do nothing. Lord is present, then Maya can operate. Those of profound mind taking shelter of my spiritual Swarup serve my human form with no distractions, knowing that my human-like body is the cause of all beings, that is indestructible and fully spiritual. So here the statement is that the devotees who know Krishna, they serve the Supreme Lord. Those who know me as the Supreme Brahman with human form, those whose minds have been enlarged and deepened by such faith in me, through devotee association, serve me, bhajanti. They serve the Supreme Lord. So this is the process of bhakti yoga. So the first verses there were to establish the position of the Lord with his inconceivable powers of being in everything and outside of everything, and able to operate without having to touch anything in the material world, simply by his presence. Once that is established, then the devotees recognize the Lord, and then they worship the Lord.
Why did it say my spiritual Swarup? The Swarup is Swami's own root and form, that is the own form. Does that indicate that there is another non-spiritual Swarup?
Of the Lord?
Yeah. So because I'm talking about the two words, spiritual and Swarup.
Oh, okay. Well, I suppose you could say this Swarup also, take shelter of my Swarup, spiritual Sarupa. Yeah, you could chalk that out. I suppose we could put it in there simply because in the material world we confuse the Atma, which is the Sarup of the Jiva, with his body. We think we're the body rather than the soul. So the Lord has a body in the spiritual world, and we may think that's different from his Sarup, or maybe the body is his Sarup and his Atma is somewhere else. But it's all one in one sense, and it's all spiritual. So this is we could say the Sarupa of the Lord is by nature spiritual. You don't have to say that, but just to emphasize the fact that it's not a temporary phenomenon like we think our body is our Sarupa in the material world. And it's not different, the form of the Lord is not different from himself.
Seems to be a lot of emphasis on the human, which you mentioned it twice, the human mind, followed by human form.
Yes, that's his Sarup. So the human form of the Lord as opposed either to the Vishnu forms or to the impersonal forms, which don't have there's no form at all. Of course we could say you can have bhakti for Nrsimhadev or Varaha also, but the emphasis here is upon Krishna, so therefore they were talking about the human form. As in chapter 11, where Krishna displays the universal form, and then Arjuna says, well, I like the other form better. And then he returns to that other form, the human-like form. And so that's considered to be particularly Krishna.
That's kind of like commentary in a sense, because the Sanskrit
Yeah. Now, of course, we do have other verses. Often they quote I think Vishnu Purana verses there, Param Brahma Nara Akriti. So Nara Akriti definitely means the human form, a man-like form, like that. So that's Parabrahman is got a human form in the form of Krishna. Also, I think in the Gopal Tapani Upanishad also there's a quote like that. It talks about the human form again. Or we can say human-like form because it's not material human form. Having strict vows, desiring to be my associates or my devotees, diligent to understand my nature, they worship me at all times with devotion through singing, offering respects, and other devotional acts. So this is the description of the process of bhakti. Two verses explain the devotional process. At all times, satatam, without regard for purity of time and place, they glorify me. Kirtanam, they worship me, mam upasate, by loud chanting the sweet nectar of my names, related to my auspicious qualities and activities such as Govinda and Govardhana Dari, going to the temples, housing my forms, falling down like rods on the dusty earth full of devotion, namasyanta bhaktya, they worship me. So this is a description of some of the activities like kirtan and hearing and worshipping the deity form of the Lord and offering respects. So these, some of the activities which are also mentioned in the Nectar of Devotion. Yeah.
This dusty earth, falling down along the dusty earth.
Yeah.
Is it bona fide or do you bring down?
Rolling.
Is that something added to the or is that bona fide?
It's we see this in the Leelas often. They in ecstasy they roll on the ground. The devotees of Krishna, they're rolling on the ground in ecstasy, like that. They're not just falling on the ground; they roll on the ground also. So maybe it's taken from that as a sadhana also. I know, yeah, the sadhana.
Now those rolling,
Yeah.
rolling the dirt or bring down.
Yeah.
Is it a bona fide process, or I understand the one in ecstasy doesn't have a thing.
Yeah.
But is it a bona fide process to get something apart by one of that?
Well, we could say that's an extension of this namaskar where you lie down on the ground and you offer your respects. So, and then because the dust of Vrindavan is glorified, So you want to roll in the dust or take the dust, and if you want to do it, put it all over your body, then you roll in it. There's also, it's not rolling in the dust so much, but they have a process like in Balaji temple in South India. Usually you have to pay to get in, nowadays, if you want to, unless you want to wait for 10 hours, you have to pay some money to go in. But then there's another process you can get in free, and that's early in the morning you get up, and then you have to bathe in wet clothing in the tank outside, and then you come in the temple, and then you have to roll all the way around that inner thing. It looks easy, but it's difficult because it hurts a lot because it's stone, and you have to roll. Just get roll all the way around the whole temple. Maybe about 15 minutes. It's not the outside temple; it's the inside temple, the smaller temple with Balaji's house inside. You have to roll all the way around on the stones, like your shoulders get all sore because it's all rocks. I did it once, yeah. It was pretty painful.
You have to take bath?
Yeah, cold water in the morning, and then you're all wet with your wet clothing on, and you got to go around. The whole thing is wet. The area is all wet because a lot of people are doing that.
Yeah. How do you get in for free if you do that?
It's kind of a vrata, I guess. Take a cold bath in the morning and you roll around to show your humility before the Lord. Do purkama by rolling. Like they do the purkama like this, with the stone and like that. So this is just rolling. Others worship me by many methods through jnana yagya, seeing me in different material elements and in the forms of many devatas. So then, after describing that pure bhakti, satatam kirtayanto mam, etc., then Krishna goes back to describe some mixed type of bhakti, or we can say jnana, with some bhakti mixed in it. Having spoken of the devotees known as Mahatmas, who have predominance of pure bhakti in the form of chanting and other processes, and who are fixed on the pure form of the Lord, Krishna now speaks of other devotees who have predominance of jnana, and with the process of bhakti, such as chanting as secondary action. So it's actually bhakti misra jnana. Bhakti is a secondary element. It's there, but it's secondary to the jnana element. Krishna possessing subtle spiritual and material energies, whose every wish is fulfilled by willing let there be many, remains one with his spiritual and material energies, but in a gross manifestation is situated in variegated forms within the universe, from Brahma down to inanimate objects. They worship him, people worship him through chanting and other processes related to him in order to realize this conception. So they take things in the material world, and then they worship Krishna through material objects. That's one type of worship in the material world. Not the best, but it's a step towards understanding the spiritual form of the Lord. So after describing those various types of devotees, then Krishna again describes pure bhakti and how the Lord reciprocates with those devotees. I carry the burden of supply and maintenance of those who desire constant association with me, and who, thinking only of me, worship only me. So they worship only Krishna. This is pure bhakti. And Krishna responds to those devotees. I alone take responsibility for bringing and preserving food and other necessities for those people who take me alone as the goal, who meditate upon me, who worship me thoroughly, and who are always absorbed in me, forgetting about their bodily maintenance. So when the devotees reach a very high stage and they're no longer interested in their bodies, Krishna supplies for them to maintain their bodies. Yes, like Rupa Goswami and Vrindavan, he didn't care. People brought things, fine, and he would take them. I accept what is offered with devotion by the unmotivated devotee. That's the person doing pure bhakti, a leaf, flower, fruit, or water. As I mentioned previously, it's a simple process. So Advaitacharya offered tulsi leaves and water. Having said one should perform bhakti to the Lord because it yields eternal, unlimited results, the Lord now says that one should perform bhakti because it is easy in execution. So see, it gives unlimited results, it's eternal, but it's also very easy, so you should do it. Yeah. So Satyanam Kirtiyantamam verse was there, Aninaschantiyantamam, Patram Pashtam Phulam Toyam is there. The activities of pure bhakti such as kirtan, after being dedicated solely to the Lord, are then performed. That means the activities are intrinsically bhakti because they're already offered to the Lord before you do them, rather than being offered after being performed. That's the case of karma yoga. You do your activity, then we'll offer the results to Krishna. So the activity itself is not bhakti, but we modify it afterwards by giving the results to Krishna. But these activities from beginning to end are offered to the Lord. Kirtan in itself is a glorification of the Lord, so before you do the kirtan, it's already an offering to the Lord. So the whole process is an offering to the Lord, not that we do something and then offer it to the Lord.
What if you do kirtan with a musical performance that you want to show off?
Well, obviously it's not pure. So we could say the intention, in other words, we chant, but then we have to chant with pure bhakti. So you can take any of the devotional activities and you can have other motives behind it. And then, of course, it becomes mixed bhakti at best. But here we're talking about the pure bhakti. But in any case, those activities in themselves are meant to be. Their whole purpose originally is simply for the Lord from beginning to end. Now, if we're impure, of course, we can take them and do other things with them. But the intention of in prescribing these activities is that it's already, the activity itself is a glorification of the Lord, hearing, chanting, etc. But of course, if we're impure, then we can mix our material desires with it, and we don't get the same results.
But there are certain activities that even though you're not pure, you can perform and become less pure. And if you are at home reading Bhagavad-gita, you don't want to show off, but really there's no other motivation that is hearing about Krishna.
Yeah.
And when you chant japa, for example, even the mind can be racing here and there, but nonetheless, it's meant for Krishna only.
Yeah.
But there are other activities like kirtan, for example, which can be a real
Yeah. Well, you could also do it like the hearing process. You could show off also that I'm hearing, I'm attending all the classes just for your prestige or whatever, or any activity you could do like that. Even your japa, show off your japa, and then it's just artificial, But of course, kirtan, because it is more public, it tends to be something that you can more easily altered according to your ego, whatever, because it's a public thing. But speaking is the same. So people can speak about Krishna, but they can do that for the wrong reasons again. So that's why in the Angas of Bhakti, Rupa Goswami says, studying too much books is useless. But he says, that means studying books which are non-devotional books, one. Second, even if you study devotional books, if you're doing it for the wrong reasons. That is, you're doing it to defeat other people, or you're doing it as a profession, which means you're doing it to get some profit from other people by explaining things very nicely, and then they admire you, and then they give some money to you, like that. So in other words, you've got the wrong motives involved. So, yeah, that can happen, but that's considered one of the things you shouldn't do.
The Sanskrit word toyam, or water, does it mean liquid, or does it mean milk and water?
Usually water. Toya means water. Of course, leaf, fruit, and water, this is like a general thing. It doesn't mean that's all you can offer, but these are the simplest things. Everybody has water. You can get a tulsi leaf anywhere, and one little piece of fruit or whatever like that, or a flower. Obviously, in devotional service, and we're offering lamps and camphor and food, etc. So those are also standard things, but this is like the bare minimum. Even in bhakti, in archana, we start with 16 items, which includes namaskar and offering food, etc., and put water and argya, all these things. And if you can't do that, then you do 10 items. If you can't do that, you do 5 items. Incense, lamp, I think flower, fruit, or naivedyam, and I think namaskar. That's 5 items. If you can't do that, then you can offer 2 items. I think it's water and flowers. If you can't do that, just offer bhakti, 1 item. In other words, you can mentally think of everything and just have bhakti, and still you can succeed. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you sacrifice, whatever you give, and whatever austerity perform, offer it to me, O son of Kunti. Another famous verse. So this is actually not, it's a little bit different, because it's talking about processes which are not so much direct bhakti at all, like hearing and chanting, etc. So sacrifices, etc. Whatever you give in charity, whatever austerity perform, offer it to me. So these previous verses, this is Baladev's thing, the previous verses concerning pure bhakti were concerning what is called the nirapeksha devotee, the devotee who completely disregards all duties and societies and is simply dedicating himself to the Lord. So he's like a Babaji or something like that. That's his practice. The Satadam Kirtayantam Mam, etc., completely absorbed in the process of bhakti. The next lower stage is called the Parinishita devotee, who is equally practicing pure bhakti, but he's still in society. And he's following the rules of Varnashram to set an example for other people. But he's not attached to those rules. So he also does the same things, hearing, chanting, etc. So he does those main processes, but then he also does these other actions, that is like the sacrifices, the austerities, the charities, etc. Like Kshatriya has to give charity. So these are the duties of Kshatriya. So Arjuna is fixed in Varnashram system, so he follows those duties, but he's also doing pure bhakti. He's doing both. So that's called a Parinishita devotee. The one who's given up all the activities and just renounced completely, that's called the Nirapeksha devotee. But they're actually equal in one sense, because the Parinishita is not attached to his Varnashramic duties, but he offers them to the Lord, and then he's doing his pure bhakti as well. There's a lower stage called the Sannishta devotee. He's not doing the pure devotee activities, he's doing these karma activities, but offering them to the Lord. So that's a lesser type of bhakti. But he's doing pure bhakti here, the Parinishita devotee. Yeah.
So you would consider that verse as pure bhakti?
Which one? The last one? Yeah. Who's doing? No, that's not. It's a little bit mixed. So it's described the results are different. That because he's attached to the Varnashram system, he's not quite, we can say, materialistic. So he's a slight mixture of karma, like that. So his destination is he goes to the upper planetary systems, and then he proceeds upward gradually until he gets to Brahmaloka, and then he gets to the spiritual world. Whereas the Parinishita or the Nirapeksha, these two here mentioned, they go directly to the spiritual world. They don't have to go through Svargaloka or anything else. So therefore we shouldn't confuse the two types of bhakti. That of the Parinishta devotee and the Sannishta devotee. So it says what is offered in the Sannishta's bhakti are only actions defined in the Vedas. It's not the pure bhakti activities like hearing, chanting, etc. It is the Parinishta devotee who's described in this verse because he offers all his actions to the Lord, not just the prescribed actions. Okay, so the Lord is attracted to this pure bhakti. I'm equal to all living beings. I do not hate anyone, nor do I favor anyone, but those who worship me with devotion are in me, and I am in them. So previously Krishna has talked about his reciprocation with the devotee, how he helps the devotee, etc. So here again he's saying how he's very attracted to devotion, though normally he is neutral. Since all living entities who possess unequal natures, unequal forms, unequal species among devas, men, animals, and non-moving entities attain those forms according to their karmas, I, the creator and maintainer, the Lord of all beings, am equal to all, like the rain, which sprinkles water and all varieties of seeds. I do not have hatred or favoritism at all towards any of them. So they're getting the results of their karma, and the Lord doesn't interfere with them, and he doesn't hate them if they get a low body, and doesn't favor them if they get a high body. They're getting all that by their karma. So he's neutral for those living entities, and he lets the karma operate. Those who worship me, however, who please me with hearing and other devotional processes, exist in me because of attraction to me. Existing in the Lord means the Lord is always thinking of them. So it's not like neutral, as in the case of other people with karma. Though I am the Lord of all, I exist in them because of attraction to them. Bhagavan, the full manifestation of God, has love for the devotees. This response is like the combination of jewels and gold. That means the devotee and the Lord together are like the gold and the jewel. They enhance each other. So the Lord is enhanced by the devotee, and the devotee is enhanced by the Lord. They complement each other. Of course, the Lord is supreme, but he's very attracted to the devotee, and they increase each other's qualities, we could say, by their association. So, and this indicates there's a special interaction in prema between the devotee and Supreme Lord. So when Krishna says, I'm in my devotee, that means there's a relationship of prema. The devotee has prema and for the Lord, and the Lord has prema for the devotee. Okay, so very special case. After this, then, what about the devotees not so pure? So Krishna makes a very remarkable statement. If the most sinful person worships me with no desire than to please me, I still consider that person to be a devotee, since he has fixed himself completely in me. So he's very sinful, but he also worships the Supreme Lord. Looks like a little contradiction, because if he's sinful, then that means he's got attraction to the material world. Yes, so he's not perfect. He's in sadhana, but he's doing faulty sadhana. But he worships the Lord with no desire than to please me. So he's trying to please the Lord. Obviously he does have desires, but he's trying to please the Lord. He doesn't worship any other devata or anything. Only the Lord. He doesn't follow any of the process. But he commits some sin. So the Lord says that he's still my devotee. Because he's fixed himself in me. So in other words, though, we can take this other verse as being on level of prema. Still, even the devotee's not on prema, then the Lord is still attracted to that devotee. He's attracted to the devotees, not just who do sadhana, but even they do bad activities in sadhana. Still, he is attracted to them because of the sadhana.
Imagine the institutional environment where leadership is considered has to be seen as saintly. Any kind of leadership, even leadership.
Yeah.
And that verse would say that you still consider him as a devotee, but you can't lead Kirtan because you're doing this sinful thing.
Yeah. So, within institution, we may have to take puts restrictions on people or whatever, or punitive actions or whatever, for different activities. Some of them, of course, if we find they're very insincere, we just ban them completely, say, no, you're not a devotee anymore because of the activities you've done in relation to devotees. Others, okay, we can appreciate, okay, they're devotees of sorts, but we don't want you to contaminate anybody or whatever like that. The attitude, of course, still the attitude is we try to appreciate the devotional aspect in spite of the fact that something is there. But nevertheless, we do have to, according to the fault or the sin or whatever, we do have to take some action on that. So it doesn't mean you're just helpless or whatever, but according to the situation. And still, if we see the person is serious in devotional service, we took that into consideration concerning his punishment or whatever he has to get. And if he is very sincere, then we don't consider the punishment so much as someone who's less sincere. If the Ananya Bhakta, even doing very degraded activities, worships me, serves me by singing my glories and by other acts, he should still be considered worthy of respect. So in other words, we don't hold the sinful activity against him if we have proof that he actually is continuing the process of bhakti sincerely. Hopefully he won't do the activity again. He is Ananya in the sense that he does not worship or take shelter of anyone other than me, as Krishna. He accepts me alone as the supreme goal and master. Everyone should accept this fact. It is an injunction to the Lord himself, and not to do so is an offense. So which means that people may have faults and commit sinful activities, and we have to accept that that's true. At the same time, we don't unnecessarily dwell on and publicize their fall down or whatever. Then let Krishna take care of the rest of it. We can do what we can, make our arrangement, then Krishna handles the rest.
There are a situation you get somebody who's, falling down, like it can go on for years.
Oh, okay, that's another position. Here, of course, Krishna says he rightly, he corrects himself also. Yeah, he corrects himself. And then he continues the process, and he doesn't interrupt. If a person commits a sin, and then he commits another sin, or like that, and it's very difficult for him to correct himself, that's a different position again. And then we'd say even Krishna doesn't have to accept that person anymore. So this is the case where the person does a sin, then he corrects himself, and he continues the process very nicely.
That's accidental.
Yeah, accidental. We call it accidental sin. He's not repeating and intentionally taking advantage of devotional service to do the sinful activity, etc. Very quickly he becomes a righteous person and becomes completely devoid of contamination. O son of Kunti, you should declare to all that my devotee never perishes. My exclusive devotee, if he commits sinful acts out of negligence, is not destroyed. He does not become separated from me and attain misfortune. Rather, purified by me, who am most purifying, he shines with qualification to attain me. And so it means a very serious devotee. And we have to fall down, and then he continues the process, and then Krishna helps him. And he says, he never perishes, my devotee never perishes. Even those born in sinful situations, such as women, Vaishyas, and Sudras, and even the outcasts, if they surrender to me, attain me, the supreme goal. This looks like a little bit of a change of subject from this, talking about this, but then he's talking, what he is saying here is that due to karmic situations, you're born as a woman, a Vaishya, a Sudra, an outcast, a Malecha, whatever. Still, if you can attain Krishna, Krishna can accept you. What is so remarkable about purifying those devotees who commit accidental or occasional sin? Even those who are the most sinful and not even devotees become completely freed of ignorance and become especially liberated by devotee association. So by the mercy of devotees, anyone who's not even a devotee and has committed some sins in past lifetimes and in this lifetime, even those persons can attain bhakti and attain Krishna. So the outcasts are the papayonayaha, which means they're beyond the varnashram system, and they're very inclined to do sinful activity. If they take complete shelter of Krishna, the Lord of all, the son of Vasudeva, through a powerful association of the devotees, they attain the Supreme. So this is, we say, very remarkable. The Lord allows everybody, even if they come from very sinful backgrounds, to progress in devotional service.
Right, you got an example in Jagannath Puri, like traditionally the sadhus or the pig farms were looking after Jagannath.
Yeah.
So how do you understand? I mean, if they're
sinful
farmers, you presume that they're killing them and eating them as well.
I think originally they were the pig herds, the savaras. And they were taking care of, one of them was, what's his name, Vishwavasu? He was taking care of the Jagannath deity, the Nilamadava, was it? Nilamadava, yeah. And the Lord was satisfied. He was just offering roots and fruits in the forest, but he was satisfied with his devotion. It's not said there if he was actually eating pigs or whatever, but obviously with low caste and whatever. And but the Lord appreciated his sincerity and his worship. So therefore, when Krishna manifested himself again in the form of Jagannath, then he accepted those Sabras, that tribe, as their worship, because he is attached to that worship of the Sabra previously. But whether they're still pig herds or not, I don't know. I would suspect not, but anyway. That's, of course, a very special Leela with Jagannath, and he's very, very merciful. So that's one aspect of Jagannath, why I think Prabhupada encouraged many people to worship Jagannath, because he's most merciful even to the most fallen people, etc.
Reference, I think, I don't know, Ramanujacharya or Madhvacharya, that he goes and he is critical of the way the pujari is service.
Oh, in Jagannath Puri, it's Ramanuja. Yeah, because Ramanuja was following the Pancharatric system of worship, which is the usual Vaishnava procedure. And in Puri, they weren't doing that. It was a mixture of many things. I think there's Tantra mixed in it, and then they have all these the tribals there doing their things also. So due to the history of the temple, it has evolved its own type of rules and regulations, which are quite different from Pancharatra. So he wanted to correct that system. But then apparently Jagannath moved him away at night time when he was sleeping. He ended up in Srikakulam, which is maybe 150 miles south. And then he woke up and he was in a different place because Jagannath preferred that worship.
It's the same for the festival in Orissa, when they offer the star show.
Yeah.
And then Balaram slept in the face.
Yeah, because he thought it was too coarse or something, but then Balaram preferred that. Concentrate your mind on me, be my devotee, worship me, offer respects to me. Having absorbed your body and mind in me, taken shelter only of me, you will come to me. Very famous verse. Again, it's pure bhakti. It's bhakti. And this is repeated at the end of the Bhagavad-gita again. So, a very essential verse. So there's no, let's say, space for or opportunity to give an impersonal interpretation of the Bhagavad-gita, because so many, in each chapter we get this concentration on the Lord, even in the chapters like chapter 2 or chapter 3 or chapter 4 or chapter 5, which are concerning, Atma-gyan and so many others, in Karma Yoga, still it's all connected to Krishna. And then finally, with the middle 7 chapters, it's all on worship of Krishna. So, and this of course is the main thrust of the whole Bhagavad-gita. So we can see it is not to do with impersonalism at all, but the process of bhakti and worshipping the personal form of the Lord. So he's talking here to Arjuna, who was a Parinishita devotee, pure devotee, and also doing his duty as a kshatriya in society without attachment. Okay. Yeah.
You know, you wanted to show that when he says the 6 middle chapters are bhakti and
Yeah.
preserved within. So interesting in bhakti, one says this is the top of bhakti, but in the 14th chapter, the Bhagavad-gita, Krishna says right from the onset, this knowledge is Jnana Uttama, is the best of all knowledge. So he goes up because this is the best, and this is the best, and this is the best. He talks in the 14th chapter about the mode of nature, and he says, something very interesting about he says, if you speculate about the free mode of nature, you can achieve transcendence.
Oh, I think speculative doesn't mean, it means if you understand it by discrimination or something, if you're using your logical mind with the jnana process, then you can transcend the modes of material nature, something like that, I think he's saying. Yeah, but we find in the 18th chapter, then he says, I will teach you secret knowledge, and then he starts talking about Brahman. Then he starts, I'll teach you more secret knowledge, and he talks about Paramatma. Then he says, I'll teach you the most secret knowledge. And then he quotes the same verse. So it comes back to this 9th chapter, the most secret knowledge. Yeah. So you should be my devotee who is dedicated to me at all times. Your mind should be absorbed constantly like an unbroken stream of honey in me, Vasudeva, with the complexion of a blue lotus, through understanding with your intelligence my lordship over you and my bestowal of the highest benefit to you. Be my worshipper. Be absorbed in worshiping my form, the most dear object with such wonderful qualities. Offer your respects to my wonderful form with intense prema. Having offered your mind and body to me, taking shelter only of me, you will come to me. So this is a very obvious description of the process of pure bhakti in its very high form of absorption. In this chapter, bhakti like the Ganga, not considering who is suitable or unsuitable and destroying all sins by its very touch, is alone considered to be the king of all secrets. So the Ganga purifies people, whether they're anybody, whoever they are. So bhakti is like that, as we saw in those last verses. The most sinful person also can take part in bhakti, and they get purified, and they can also attain the highest position. So this is the king of all secrets, the process of bhakti and understanding the position of the Supreme Lord. Okay, that's chapter 9. Fine. Any other question?
Chapter 13. Krishna will start talking about
Prakriti.
talking about Prakriti and about the knowledge and the Nora and everything.
The Nora, the object of knowledge. Knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the goal of knowledge.
All those processes of knowledge, are they applicable by the devotee? Because in one of them, 8-12, it says, one of the items says think of me, and all the others give processes.
Yeah. So that's why these last chapters are considered to be part of Jnana Yoga. But then within there we do have some bhakti. There's a few of them. So there's a long list of those things as part of Jnana, like living in a lonely place and doing this and that, discussing, discriminating, Jnana, etc. But then one of them is surrender to the Lord or worship of the Supreme Lord, which we take as the main item. But for Jnanis, that's a secondary item, but nevertheless necessary even for their Jnana. So for the process of Jnana, realizing Atma, then they also have to worship the Supreme Lord, but it's a secondary item. For the devotee, of course, then we're not doing Jnana Yoga at all. We're doing this process of hearing, chanting, remembering, etc.
But those items also necessary for the devotee?
Well, they're automatically included in devotion. So in other words, we do understand about Prakriti and the gunas, etc. But that's not our main concern. Our main concern is to relish the topics of Krishna and the activities of Krishna, etc., and hear about Krishna. So the Jnanis, they analyze material nature, and then they see how the soul is separate from all of that. So that becomes their goal, simply to understand Atma, and then if they progress a little further, then they emerge in Brahman. For the devotee, of course, then we go beyond that, and after realizing Atma, then we understand Supreme Lord as the controller of everything there. So the Jnanis maybe say partially complete the process. The devotees can cover that same process, but go further by analyzing material nature, understanding the difference of Atma from Prakriti, and then also appreciating the Supreme Lord and putting him in the highest position, and then doing bhakti. So if we partially go there, then we get to the Jnana stage only.
Thinking about this concept that bhakti is easily performed, I'm wondering, seems like in regards to, I guess, institutionally and also in terms of the process of deity worship, it seems like it can become like over-complicated if you're not maybe qualified, or it seems like the simplicity of bhakti can be overcomplicated with unnecessary.
Well, deity worship is one section which does require some more knowledge. It's not so simple. The other processes are quite simple, like hearing, We don't require any particular education for hearing Bhagavatam or something like that, or for kirtan or whatever. It's no particular, educational process for that. Of course, we can just learn to sing or play the kartals or the mridanga or learn different tunes, but that's about it. So in that sense, it's quite simple. So deity worship is one special anga of bhakti, and that does require some special knowledge. Even then, it is a flexible process. It can be very complicated if we want to follow all the rules of Pancharatra, like other sampradayas do, like Ramanuja Sampradaya, Madhva. It becomes quite complicated, deity worship. Ours is a much simplified process. So we may think, it's too complicated, but if you follow the other process from Ramanuja, it's much, much more complicated. So this is a great simplification of that. If you compare the process, it's very simplified compared to that. And if it's not temple worship, it's personal worship, it can be very simple. So you have your own deity or Shalagram Shila, you can do very simply, offer all the different items, 16 items or 10 items or 5 items. And you can complete your worship with that even. So that becomes simplified also, very simple if necessary. But in temples, generally, we follow a higher standard. And in personal worship, it can be much simpler. The main factor in all this is the devotion. If we're doing the deity worship in the temple and we're following more complex standards or extended standards, still the devotion has to be there. If that's not there, then the whole process fails again. So, and if you're doing it in your house very simply, but you do have the devotion, then you get the equal also. You get the equal effect even. So in that sense, we can say it's simple. Like Advaitacharya was offering Ganga water and tulsi leaves to the Shalagram. That was his worship. Very simple. He didn't require all sorts of elaborate methods. He was offering very simple things to Shalagram with devotion. And then Lord Chaitanya manifested himself because of that. So we say that's a very simple form of arch, tulsi leaves and water. So that represents all of the items that we offer. All the food and the incense and everything is combined in this tulsi leaves and water. Okay. Hare Krishna.